Hey guys, welcome back. So for this one, we are continuing our talks on Benjamin Percy's Predator vs. Wolverine series. And there's a lot of things that this issue has me thinking about. So there might be a time or two here where we hone in and take a couple of detours. So I just want to give you the heads up before we get started. But with that said, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to catch the spills every week. And don't forget to hit that bell up top to get all notifications so we can squat up in the comments for the first hour. Alright, so with us coming back, we start off by returning to the present day and picking up right where we left off, with Wolverine trapped under 2 tons of rubble at the bottom of the river, with the Predator closing in quickly for the kill. But just before he can get to Logan, it's here where we see some of Logan's recollection come into play for his benefit, in this moment that would seem to be the end for him. Because again, from the start of this series, all the way up to now, with us going back and forth from the present day to a number of moments throughout Wolverine's life, these moments and these memories are helping Wolverine to assess the situation now and figure out how not only to survive, but also beat the Predator at his game. And I can't stress enough, I really feel like Benjamin Percy hit the nail on the head with this approach. And it's here when we get some narration of what Wolverine's thinking in this moment, where he's like, the Predator thinks that he has him, but there's something that he knows that the Predator doesn't, and that's the fact that hunting is elemental. You study dirt for tracks and spoor. You know what's growing or hatching or breeding. You know where to find water and shelter. It's not about the gear. And as Wolverine's saying this, he lets himself just bleed out, to the point where a lot of his warm blood just fills the water, making it impossible for the Predator to keep a thermal visual on him. Which again, it's not only Wolverine using the element of the hunt to work to his advantage and get him out of this, but it's also him pointing out that the Predator relies too much on its gadgets and its gear, which to Wolverine, that's no different than those big game hunters who drop 20 bands on laser sights and multiple caliber rifles and all sorts of tech for the sake of trophy hunting. And Wolverine says at the end of the day, if they were true hunters, they could accomplish the same task with just 1 blade, or perhaps even 3, because the fancier the tech, the cockier you get. And I'm just like, man, look at Logan with the slogans. But nonetheless, with creating this diversion, Logan's able to buy enough time to carve his way out and create some space between himself and the Predator. And just after this, we head back to continue the most recent flashback at the Weapon X facility, where the Predator found Wolverine just after his adamantium bonding process. Where at this time, initially the Predator just starts doing an evaluation of what exactly is going on here. And what's really interesting is that we see him checking out the screens and learning about adamantium. So with the Predator discovering that Wolverine's entire skeletal structure has been bonded with this indestructible metal that can't be found anywhere else, this now lets him know that not only is Wolverine a rare and valuable trophy, but this guy is a platinum trophy, and he's a plat that is not likely that any other Predator will ever come by. And it's a serious deal, because the Yautja already consider humans to be their top 2 or top 3 most deadly prey, which I imagine is a hierarchy that's gonna change now that we're throwing mutants into the mix. But when you take a mutant like Wolverine, who's now bonded with a metal that can't be found anywhere else in the universe, this elevates him from being a rare trophy to now being like a platinum trophy that got removed from the PlayStation Store. So after you get it, nobody else can. And with saying that, I also want to put out there that we're talking about a time in Marvel Comics where, for the most part, adamantium was exclusive to Wolverine. But over the years, this would change drastically, with writers giving countless others adamantium upgrades, like with Cyber, Lady Deathstrike, Bullseye, and the list goes on. Because prior to Wolverine, you really just had Ultron, who managed to obtain a limited amount of adamantium, which he used to mold into a new exterior in a story that came out like 5 years before Wolverine's first appearance. But over time, and especially after Wolverine and the success of his character, the practice of just giving everybody adamantium just kind of oversaturated and shifted the needle away from how rare adamantium used to be. Because it was introduced as your indestructible and extraordinarily rare material created by Dr. Myron McLean, who then sold it to the US government, who only shared the secret of how to make it with a short list of allies, which is how it made its way to Weapon X, since Weapon X was a joint project between the US and Canadian governments. But fast forward to your more modern times, you have cases like Ezekiel Sims, who we talked about not too long ago, where he made an adamantium safe room for Peter Parker to protect him from the inheritor Morlun. And aside from that, now you have other cases like Weapon H, who's been infused with nanite adamantium tech so that the adamantium around his skeleton can expand when he hulks out and contract when he's back to a normal size. So yeah, I say all that mainly just to say that in this story we are revisiting a time where adamantium was actually rare. And I truly believe that that's a point that's important to this moment in this story for a number of reasons, and we'll come back to more of those in a little bit. But in this moment, while the Predator's examining Wolverine, it's here where Wolverine recalls that back at this time, just after the process, he was in a state where he had very little intellect or thought. But the one thing that he could interpret in this moment was pain, which is what caused him to wake up with his claws out and thrust them right into the Predator, which then just leads to the Predator squeezing some more of what seems to be xenomorph blood into Logan's mouth. That just melts his whole head down to the adamantium, which from here has the Predator believing that Wolverine is dead. And you know, I really don't blame the Predator for making that assumption, though for us, we know that's definitely not the case, due to this being a flashback. And from here, the Predator just takes Wolverine's body back onto his ship so he can head out. And with how this is done, I really like that Benjamin Percy throws in Wolverine's narration, with Wolverine explaining that the only way he knows the details of moments like this, for the most part, is from playing detective and patching together security footage, together with the actual bits and pieces of memories that he has, because it's not like his healing factor allows his memory to have total recall. And I like that we get that bit of extra explanation here. But when we see the Predator take Wolverine's body on his ship, we see a wall filled with its previous trophies. And I want you guys to let me know in the comments if you recognize any of these trophies here, and tell me what you think some of them are. But right now, with the Predator bringing Wolverine on the ship and getting ready to leave, it removes its helmet and treats its wounds, but not long after this, the Predator finds itself under attack by two F-16s, which just makes a lot of sense, because Weapon X is a multi-billion-dollar project, so it makes sense that they would scramble jets to try to stop someone from stealing their invaluable asset. And I also like how when this happens, we have two pilots here. One is named Swartz and the other one is named Weathers, which if nothing else is just a really cool reference to the first Predator movie. And as the Predator ship takes off, it shoots down Weathers, which is messed up, and it heads straight up, leaving the atmosphere. And it's right here where a still yet reforming Wolverine wakes up in a berserker rage, and he just starts clawing his way out of the ship like an animal digging its way out of a trap. And again, for Wolverine calling back to this moment, it isn't so much that he remembers exactly what happened, but again, it's a collection of him looking through mission reports and discovering that the ship's hull wasn't broken by the missiles. So he more or less put two and two together and realized that it was likely a result of him clawing his way out in a berserker state, because from there he was just yanked out of the ship alongside of the Predator's helmet, where after that Swartz noticed the asset re-entering the atmosphere. So he called in the coordinates of where the asset landed, and Professor Thornton made his way there to collect. But in addition to getting Wolverine back, the Professor also discovered the Predator's helmet nearby. And according to the different reports that Wolverine collected, he found out that the Predator's helmet was used and modeled after to produce the helmet that Wolverine used during the Weapon X program, which is a really wild connection. And I remember from the comments in the previous videos that a lot of you guys were just hoping to see some kind of connection where either Wolverine would influence the Predator's tech or vice versa, and now we're getting it here, which is nice. But after this, we jump forward to 1 week before the present day, where we find out that every so often, Wolverine will go through whatever records he can find to try to piece together the gaps of missing memories that he has, which is what led him back to the ruins of the old Weapon X lab, where in a lead-lined vault, in a lead-lined container, he found the Predator's mask. So he just figured if he took it out of this lead container, it would transmit a signal, and not too long after, the Predator would come back for it. In this way, the two of them could end this feud in the same place up north where it started. But this time around, Wolverine would be able to set the terms of their engagement. And after this, we go to the next flashback, which takes place after Weapon X, when Wolverine was living in Japan and training with the legendary swordsmith Muramasa, who, for Muramasa, though he has quite the reputation of being a madman, his technique and craftsmanship were unmatched, with him forging weapons like the Black Blade, which was also known as the Sword of Evil, or as the Silver Samurai would call it at one point, the Blade of his Destiny. But as it were, the Black Blade was infused with a portion of Muramasa's soul, as well as his madness, and those who wielded it would become extremely powerful, but they would slip further into madness and be consumed by bloodlust, unless they were fated to be the sword's master, which could only happen if the wielder was just as driven as the blade itself. And aside from this, you also had the Muramasa blade that was forged using a portion of Wolverine's soul that was capable of shutting down the healing factor or even healing ability of any person it cuts. But one of the things that made Muramasa the greatest swordsmith in the world was that his methods were based on refinement and a long process of perfection, which demanded impossible levels of patience. And this didn't only apply to his work as a swordsmith, but the same went for his fighting style and his training as well. And this is why at the time when Wolverine trained with Muramasa, he believed that Wolverine would one day become his strongest sword. But just to be clear, at this point in time, Logan is quite some way from getting to that point. But nonetheless, he does think back and remember how at this point in time in his life, he had never felt so close to peace and balance as he did here. Because prior to this, he never felt as much of a connection between his mind, his body, and the earth than he did during the time that he trained with Muramasa. So in a way, you can think of it as a mental and spiritual upgrade that Wolverine has gained since the last time he'd faced the Predator. And during this training, there's also this moment where Muramasa tells Logan that he won't be the best until he beats him, and Logan's just like, man, that's cause you won't let me use my claws. And Muramasa tells him, when the day comes that you can best me with a sword alone, you'll be able to fight 10 men or 100 men when you reach that level. But in the middle of this talk, Muramasa notices that they are not alone. And it's right here where we see that the Predator is back. And he's brought along with him a number of gear upgrades, which right here just brings it all back to what modern day Wolverine mentioned earlier, with him saying that it's not about the gear. And his slogan, the fancier the tech, the cockier you get. Because going forward into the next issue, we're going to see how Wolverine's recent spiritual and mental upgrade fares against the Predator's gear upgrade. Because a true hunter can get the job done with either one blade or 3. And so now real quick, I want to give a special shout out to all the patrons. Thank you guys for all of your support. And for anyone who's new here who wants more information on how to support the channel, I got a link below where you can go to patreon.com/DopeSpill. But that'll do it for this one, guys. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments below, and we'll do it again on the next one. Alright, later.